Nothing else to see in there. I don't need anything else from my...
Well, it's about time. I must say, here I am with information that will solve your mystery for you, and it's hours before you show up. You aren't helping that famous detective, or whatever he is, aren't you?
Yes, madam, I have that honor.
I would think you'd be more on your toes. In America, the police would have arrested the culprit by now on my evidence.
Then let us proceed without delay. May I have your passport, please?
My passport? What do you want my passport for? I'm the witness, not the murderer. What is wrong with you people in this country?
This is Yugoslavia, madam. I am French.
That's what I said.
Your passport? Thank you. You are Caroline Martha Hubbard of Great Neck, is it? Long Island?
That's what it says, doesn't it?
I would like to fingerprint you.
What do you have there? A typewriter ribbon? You're going to smear ink from that on my fingers?
That was my intention.
And how do you plan to clean that mess off afterwards?
I have something to clean your hands with.
Cocktail napkins? Good gracious, sweetie. What kind of fleabag investigation are you conducting here anyway?
I appreciate your cooperation. You are traveling to Paris to meet your daughter?
Yes, that I'm supposed to sail for home the day after tomorrow. Though, how can I do that stuck here? I'll never know.
Did you hear any sounds coming from Monsieur Ratchet's room?
Well, earlier I'd asked that Swedish lady, Mrs. Olson, if she had anything for a headache. She's a nurse, you know.
Yes, I know.
Poor soul. Looking for my room, she'd opened the door to Mr. Ratchet's compartment by mistake. He laughed and said something not very nice, I think. But I couldn't make it out. She said, "Oh, I make a mistake. I ashamed to make a mistake," in that bizarre accent of hers. And he laughed again and said something about her being too old. The idea! My late husband, Mr. Hubbard, and I enjoyed conjugal relations right up to the very end.
Anything else?
After that, I heard snoring. Quite loud, like an airplane engine revving up.
What color is your dressing gown?
What an odd question. I have 2 dressing gowns, if you must know. A pink flannel that's kind of cozy on board ship, and a purple silk number that my late husband, Mr. Hubbard, gave me. But what in creation do you want to know that for?
Someone in a scarlet kimono was seen coming out of either your compartment or Monsieur Ratchet's. It is very difficult to tell sometimes which is which when all the doors are closed.
Well, it wasn't mine.
Then it must have been Monsieur Ratchet's.
That wouldn't surprise me any. I thought I heard a voice in there.
Was it a woman you heard in Monsieur Ratchet's room?
Yes, I think it was.
Did you hear what was said?
Well, I didn't put a glass up to the connecting door and eavesdrop, for heaven's sakes. What sort of a person do you think I am?
When was it you heard this voice?
I have no idea. Sometime after the snoring died.
Was it before or after the train stopped?
After. After the man in my room that you have so far failed to ask me about. I woke up, heard the voice, and that was that.
Tell me about the man you thought was in your room.
At last. No offense intended, sweetie, but you foreigners do just about everything backwards.
The man?
Well, I was in bed. I woke up. All in the dark it was. And I knew, I tell you, that there was a man in there with me.
In your bed?
In my what? How dare you? No, in my compartment. I was just so scared I couldn't scream. I just lay there and thought, mercy, I'm going to be killed by some foreigner. These nasty trains. I just lay there with my eyes closed and thought of America. Somehow I got my wits about me and I felt about with my hand and I felt.
Yes?
The bell button. I pressed it and pressed, but no one came. I thought, mercy, what if they've murdered every single soul on the train? I went on pressing the bell, and at last, footsteps in the corridor. I dragged on my dressing gown, the pink one. I screamed, come in, and switched on the lights, and would you believe it? There wasn't a soul there.
Michel opened your door and entered.
Yes, although considering the time it took him to arrive, he must have come by dog sled. He seemed to imagine I dreamt the whole thing. I tell you here and now, I'm not one to imagine things.
Michel searched your compartment?
Yes, even under the chair. Although he said there wasn't room for a man to squeeze himself under there. I asked him to check the connecting door.
Was it bolted?
No, but I knew it had been because I asked the Swedish lady to check it when she brought me the headache powder.
Before Michel arrived, did either door open and close?
Sweetie, my eyes were squeezed shut tighter than a banker's fist. I didn't see. And with the bell making all that racket, the intruder could have dynamited a hole in the wall, and I wouldn't have heard it.
Do you remember the Armstrong kidnapping?
I'll say I do. How that wretch that did it escaped scot-free, I'll never understand. I'd have liked to get my hands on him.
You could have, madam, when the connecting door was unbolted.
You mean Ratchet was the man?
Yes, his real name was Cassetti.
Well, imagine that. Wait till I tell my daughter.
Were you acquainted with the Armstrong family?
Well, they were from New York, too. But no, they moved in a very exclusive circle. I've always heard that Mrs. Armstrong was a perfectly lovely woman and that her husband worshipped her. It was all incredibly sad.
I would like to dust the doorknob of the connecting door for fingerprints.
My, aren't you the little improviser? Be my guest, sweetie. Search the whole place if you'd like. I need a drink.
Mrs. Hubbard, wait. You dropped this.
That's not mine.
I thought as it has the initial H on it.
I've got mine right here. See? It's marked CMH, and it's a sensible thing, not that flimsy, expensive Parisian cambric. What good is a hanky you can't sneeze into?
HMK. No need to look under there again. Nothing of interest here.
The bracelet is worthless, mademoiselle. It is copper only. I bought it outside the train station in Istanbul for my arthritis. Take it if you like.
I'm very sorry, Your Highness. I realize how this must look, but I am only doing the job assigned me. I promise I'll return it to you, if I can.
Ah, then I expect you would like to interrogate me. I believe that is the correct term.
If I may.
But of course, I am suspect just as anyone in the Calais coach must be. I am ready for the third degree.
I have borrowed your passport, Your Highness.
I noticed that as well.
Natalia Dragomirov, 17 Avenue Kleber, Paris. You are traveling home from Istanbul, madame?
Yes. I have been staying at the Austrian embassy. My maid is with me, as you saw in the marketplace.
I regret to tell you that I must take your fingerprints.
Dear me. With typewriting ribbon? Have you something I may clean my hands with afterwards?
I have some paper napkins.
Thank you, mademoiselle. Those should suit admirably.
Could you give me a brief account of your movements last evening?
Nothing could be simpler. After dinner, Schmidt, my maid, read to me. We were interrupted by the train stopping to avoid the avalanche. Then she read aloud to me some more, until quite late.
Can you give me an idea of the time?
If I were to guess, I would say it was 1:30.
Has your maid been with you long?
15 years.
Do you consider her trustworthy?
Absolutely. Her people come from an estate of my late husband's in Germany.
Forgive the personal nature of this question, madame, but what is the color of your dressing gown?
My dressing gown? It is of blue satin.
Thank you for your time, Princess. I'm sorry. I don't think I'm quite done yet. You have been in America, I presume, madame?
Many times.
Were you acquainted with a family by the name of Armstrong?
You speak of friends of mine, mademoiselle. Sonia Armstrong was my goddaughter. I was on terms of friendship with her mother, Linda Arden, one of the greatest tragic actresses in the world. As Lady Macbeth, as Nora in A Doll's House, there was no one to touch her. I was not only an admirer of her art, I was a personal friend.
Is Linda Arden dead?
No, she is alive. It is a sort of life. She lives in complete retirement. Her health is very delicate. She must lie on a sofa most of the time.
Mrs. Armstrong had a sister, did she not?
Yes, much younger than Mrs. Armstrong.
And she is alive?
Certainly.
Where is she?
I must ask the reason of these questions. What have they to do with the murder on this train?
The dead man was responsible for the kidnapping and death of Mrs. Armstrong's child.
Ah. In my view, then, this murder is an entirely admirable occurrence. You will pardon my slightly biased point of view.
It is most natural, madame. Where is the younger daughter of Linda Arden, the sister of Mrs. Armstrong?
I've lost touch with the younger generation. I believe she married an Englishman some years ago, but at the moment I cannot recollect the name. Mademoiselle, you will forgive me, but the one you assist, he who guides the investigation, no one has told me his name.
He is Hercule Poirot, madame.
Poirot. Of course. I thought his face was somehow familiar to me. Poirot on this train. It is destiny. Cassetti, that monster, on this very train, and Poirot as well. Oh, we are but puppets of destiny. I think Monsieur Poirot is very lucky indeed to have you assisting him, mademoiselle. Cassetti, that monster.
Colonel Arbuthnot, I do not believe we've been properly introduced.
I expect the formalities must be winked at in a case like this, mademoiselle. The attendant told me you are acting on the Frog Detective's behalf.
I am the Frog, monsieur. Hercule Poirot is Belgian.
Apologies, no offense meant. Your accent's a bit of mid-channel, difficult to pick up.
May I have your passport, please?
Of course.
Colonel Francis Gordon Arbuthnot, the Mews, Cheltenham, Royal Northumberland Fusiliers, currently stationed in India.
Yes, on leave.
But you're not traveling on the P&O boat? Why not?
I stopped in Baghdad with the AOC, who happens to be a good friend of mine.
I will take your fingerprints now.
Will you, by Jove? Well, get on with it then.
Where did you meet Mademoiselle Debenham?
Miss Debenham? What, in Baghdad, if you must know.
And your opinion of her?
You can take it from me, she's all right. A Puka Sahib.
Can you give me an account of your movements last night?
Yes, I think I can. After dinner, I had a drink in the salon car with young McQueen, the dead man's secretary. Surprisingly knowledgeable about world affairs for an American, even if he had got hold of some tomfool ideas about India. We adjourned to his compartment, let me see, around 2100. That's 9 p.m. You saw us in the Belgrade station courtyard. We stepped out for a bit of fresh air, but with the weather turning foul, that wasn't on.
What do you and Monsieur McQueen smoke?
McQueen doesn't, now that I think of it. A pipe's my weapon of choice.
What happened after Belgrade?
Around 2200, that's 10 p.m. Ratchet's valet came to fetch him for his employer. He went off for a while.
And what did you do after Monsieur McQueen left you?
Well, I went back to the salon car for a nightcap, didn't I? I was heading to my compartment when I ran into McQueen. Went off back to his room again to continue the natter. I put him straight on India. Learned a bit about the American stock market. Bloody fool's game, if you ask me. Oh, pardon that is to say, my language.
Do not concern yourself.
There, you see. Now I can hear the accent. It comes and goes.
What time did your discussion of world affairs end?
The conversation was so engrossing, by the time I looked at my watch, it was 1:45. McQueen called the attendant to make up his bed. I came back here.
Did anyone pass Monsieur McQueen's room while you were talking?
A good many people, I should think. I wasn't paying attention. The attendant did at one point, and I think I caught a glimpse of you wandering about.
Let us say during the last hour of your conversation.
Really, I can't.
Colonel, you have the soldier's observation for detail.
Hang on. There was a woman, I think.
Was this woman young or old?
Didn't see her, wasn't looking that way. Just a rustle in a scent.
Mademoiselle Debenham?
No, I'd recognize. That is to say, it wasn't. No, it was very strong. Fruit or something.
Can you pinpoint the time the woman passed? What were you discussing?
Let's see, I was detailing the other washout. Stalin's 5-year plan was turning out. It must have been within the last half hour. More definite than that, I can't say.
Have you ever been in America?
Never. Don't want to go.
Did you ever know a Colonel Armstrong?
Armstrong. I've known 2 or 3 Armstrongs. Selby Armstrong. He was killed on the Somme.
I mean the Colonel Armstrong who married an American woman and whose only child was kidnapped and murdered.
Ah, yes. I remember reading about that. Shocking affair. Never actually came across the fellow, but his name came up in the officers' mess, of course. Toby Armstrong. Nice fellow. Everybody liked him. Distinguished career, got the VC, Victoria Cross.
The man who was killed last night was the man responsible for the murder of Colonel Armstrong's child.
Then in my opinion, the swine got what he deserved. though I would have preferred to see him properly hanged, or electrocuted, or whatever it is they do over there. Trial by 12 good men and true. Sound system.
Anything you can recall from last night that strikes you as suspicious?
There was one odd thing.
Yes?
As I got back to my compartment, I noticed that the door of the one beyond mine, number 16, it wasn't quite closed. The chap inside peered out in a rather furtive sort of way, then quickly pulled the door. Probably nothing in it, but you know what it is. Early hours of the morning, everything very still. The thing had a sinister look, like a detective story.
Thank you, Colonel Arbuthnot.
Not at all. Now, if you don't mind, I think I'll pop along to the salon car.
Don't let me keep you.
You mean to say you intend to stay in my compartment?
Yes.
And search through my belongings?
I'm sorry, but I really must.
But it just isn't. That's bloody irregular. Pardon my French.
I found this button from your tunic in the American lady's compartment.
I have lost no button, mademoiselle. There must be some mistake.
Then perhaps it was dropped by the man she said was in her room.
There was no one there. The lady must have imagined it.
I need to ask you some questions about Monsieur Ratchet's death.
But of course, Mademoiselle Marceau, I will do anything I can to help.
When was the body discovered?
The valet of Monsieur Rachet, he tapped several times at the door this morning. There was no answer. Then, half an hour ago, Lucien, the waiter, came. He wanted to know if Monsieur was taking déjeuner. It was 11 o'clock, you comprehend.
Continue.
I opened the door for him with my pass key. But there is a chain, too, and that is fastened. There is no answer, and it is very still in there, and so cold. The window open, I borrow the engineer's hammer and break the chain and go in. Monsieur Rachet was... it was terrible. The chain was